used to laugh at me. Used to show them on my records talking casually. Used to say it was a passion on my path to be. Then they told me that I couldn't, so I had to be. Tell me what they really think about it now. Used to hate it, but I guarantee they're proud. Had to do it just to show them that I could, yeah. Now I finally think I took it where I should, yeah. Had jokes on you and now you're on and laughing. I did a whole lot of winning. Look, it came from a passion. I see a whole lot of knowings. I could see now in public and that may think a lot of things. Man, at least think something, now you the judge. Hey, now tell me where you ended up. Yeah. Look, I bet it was a simple job. Yeah. Look, I went and took a different route. Yeah. Look, that's why my life is different now. Back in my feelings, look, when I wasn't so gifted and I was learning to do this, and all I heard were the critics, and I don't blame you for that shit. Look, I was way out the basis, but I just needed some talent so I could witness the greatness. Oh yeah, you ain't ever think this, no, no, no. Stop me while I started, homie, whoa, whoa, whoa. Now this shit settled, it's go better and better, but I'll always remember, yeah, yeah.
Yo, welcome back to That1 Podcast. We're back with you on Motivation Success Network, your favorite podcast platform. Before we get started, I want to thank you for being here, listening, watching, however you're consuming this content. And I want to remind you to subscribe, tell your friends, family, and coworkers about us because we are blowing up and it's thanks to you, the listener, watcher. We appreciate you. And also Motivation Success Network. We're streaming on that platform, which is like the Netflix for motivation, for entrepreneurship. It's shown on Apple, Roku, and many others. Check it out, motivationandsuccess.com. It's your boy C-Roc here. I got Jeff Londono. We're in Clearwater today. And I brought Jeff in because a friend of mine, Danny Cadine, shout out to Danny out in Vegas, had him on the show. You guys may have seen that episode. He introduced us. I was coming down to Tampa. He's like, dude, you got to meet this guy, Jeff. I'm working with him. I love him. He's super successful. He's doing amazing things. And he's doing something that not many people, if any, are doing at all. And that is working with businesses to help them get government contracts, get them set up, and also make sure they realize that they can do that with their business. Jeff, welcome to the show, man.
Thank you. Thank you, C-Roc.
Great to have you here.
I appreciate it. Shout out to Danny Calderon. He's a great client. I appreciate that. And Aoife as well.
Yeah, shout out to Aoife too, our friend out in Vegas. Just saw her a couple months ago. So look, man, I want to first of all welcome you. Thank you for being here. Shout out to Devotion Studios too. Jet and his team are amazing. We're here in his studio in Clearwater. If you're in the Clearwater area, you should check them out. You can hit me up and I can connect you. So Jeff, let's get started, man. First of all, I want to know where you came from in the first place. Like what's your story? Everybody's got a story.
Yeah. I came from New York City. New York City is where I came from. My parents were immigrants, right? They came into this country. They taught me, hard work, ethics, and that you can never give up, right?
So you first generation?
Yes.
Like your parents came?
Mm-hmm.
Okay. How old were they when they came over?
They came over here probably when they were like 22.
Okay.
22 years old, something like that.
Right to New York?
Right to New York.
Yeah. So, and then you grew up in the city or?
I would go back and forth, right? I would go back and forth. So I pretty much, lived in New York till I was 3 years old. And then I moved to Ecuador where my mother was from.
Okay.
And I lived there for 3 years. But their currency completely collapsed. So that's why I came here and we decided to, move to Tampa, Florida because it was too cold. I mean, we had to wear 3 jackets to go outside. I also have a twin brother. And he's 9 minutes older than me. Like I'm the guy that's all over the place and he's the guy that's an introvert, right? So it's like the yin and the yang there. But we're two completely different people. So we moved down to Florida, and in Florida, my dad had pizzerias, right? Pizzerias, which I actually was working in the pizzeria, flipping the pizza guy, all that stuff, And my dad, he just like made me work. Like I worked washing dishes and all this stuff. And he kind of got away from the whole pizza aspect. And my first job was Cracker Barrel, right? That was my first job. I don't know if you like that breakfast place.
So I got to talk about the pizzeria first of all. So like I worked in an Italian restaurant out of college, and this guy, it was these 3 Greek brothers, and they wanted to open up a pizzeria. One of them wanted to leave and run a pizzeria. And he's like, hey, come with me, this and that. And there was something about a pizzeria when I was that age about picking up chicks. Like girls would come in and then the guy behind there, you know what I mean? You're doing the pizza, you're showing off a little bit, you know what I mean?
It's all about the salsa.
Was it like that though? Like at all?
It was cool. Like people would come in and they would just see me. And then I had like a moment of spotlight when I would like work with the dough. And I thought I was like the coolest guy in town. You couldn't even talk to me. I wore shades inside. You couldn't even talk to me.
Yeah. I mean, you kind of put it on a show. It's not just like cooking behind a kitchen in a restaurant. Yeah. A lot of times it's open. And then you'd see some good looking girls probably back in the day, right? But you couldn't do it because your dad said you got to work. And so you feel
it was all about the business. Yeah, it was all about.
But
the
your
business.
ego was stroked a little bit.
Ego was. Oh, I was on top of the world, man. He couldn't talk to me. He couldn't talk to me.
Yeah, I love it. All right, so then you go to Cracker Barrel.
So then I just started. You know, I went away from my dad because my dad's just he's a great guy, right? He's actually the CFO of my company now, which we'll talk about that later. But I started working at Cracker Barrel, washing dishes, you know, working with people. And one day this lady was like, "Hey, where's my damn mashed potatoes?" And I looked at her and I was like, "What?
Where was this? Where was this?
Cracker Barrel here in Tampa,
in Tampa.
in Oldsmar." Okay. And I looked at her and I was like, "You know what? Here, I'm done." And I took my apron down and, you know, I left. And that's when I found out that hospitality just wasn't for me. And that's kind of, you know, where I started going to my next venture.
And so what was that? Like you leave and you're like, oh, now what do I do now? Right.
Right. I worked at Nielsen TV ratings on the phone, you know, and I got fired from there. I got fired from there because they told me to read this script and I was selling something from, you know, for ratings to older people. And it wasn't something that I was passionate about. So what I figured is actually helping people, helping businesses, doing something that's real, you know?
Right.
And to tell you, my story's pretty crazy because the reason why I got started was because of a homeless guy.
Tell us about it, man.
Yeah. So there was this guy named Scott Crawford that used to work at Nielsen and he passed away. So rest in peace, Scott. But really, he told me, he's like, "Hey, you're really good at talking to people on the phone. You should work for XYZ," which I can't say their name. And I always blew him off. I always told him, "Hey, you know what? You're crazy, Scott. You're crazy. Like this used to be a guy that used to drink a lot and all this other stuff." So one day I had a bad day. You know, this was before I got fired from the place. And he told me, "Hey, check this place out." I gave the management team a call and they told me to come in for an interview. Right. So that's kind of how I started to drift away from the current Nielsen job.
Yeah.
And it was a great interview. It was the best interview ever. I even played blackjack with the guy during my interview. It was great. And that's kind of how I got started on the federal contracting space because it was sales. It was to get sales, to get businesses involved. But I noticed that they weren't really helping businesses. They were just kind of selling them a dream, a package that didn't really work. So the whole was that there was no help on the bidding process, right? And I separated myself from the company full together. And I went to DC and I found the right proper people that actually know how to bid, that actually know how to do the registrations so we can actually give people the value that they deserve. And that's kind of how it started.
Gotcha. So you're talking about companies, regular public companies, or private companies, not federal companies or the federal government, but they can go and they can get contracts from the government because the government needs those services or products, right? And it's pretty much unlimited.
Yes.
Anything the government uses, they don't produce themselves. They go out and they take bids, right? So that's what you were looking into.
They're the biggest organization in the world. They're the richest organization in the world. What I tell people is why not do business with them? Why not do business with that organization? So I started studying, I started researching, and that was just the right way to go. I don't like to lose. So this is an industry that's indestructible, right? During COVID, we did great, right? Everybody wanted to buy masks, hand sanitizer, body bags. I mean, you name it. It didn't matter, right? So no matter, even if the earth is burning, the government is always going to have their doors open. So I kind of thought about that and I was like, well, I want something stable and I want to provide stability for other people, right? And this is why I went to DC. I made the right connections. I made connections with William Veer, right? Which he has 30 years of experience in the contracting space. So getting actual people that understand the business. And then that's when we actually became a consultancy.
So you go to DC, right? And like a lot of people hear that, right? And they're like, or they think I'll go to DC. What happened? Like, how did you start making connections? Like, what did you do specifically?
Well, I just stayed there. I stayed there for a while. I stayed there for maybe about 3 months, and just all of DC district. I would go to bars, right? I would talk to people. I would go to networking events. And over there, everybody's government. Everybody's a congressman, everybody's a politician, everybody's a federal agent. So it was the perfect hub to find the proper people that can really help me with this business.
And they all like to party and drink and go out like happy hours.
For the most part, yes.
Yeah. So it's a good spot. And you figured that out, made some friends. What were you telling people you were doing at the time though?
Well, at the time I told them that I worked for a place that offered and said this, but they didn't do this. right? So they didn't do the registrations. They didn't do the actual bidding. They didn't understand fully the entire process where people in DC did.
Gotcha.
You know what I mean? Gotcha. So what I did was I became a good people collector, right? So there's three things, right? There's getting registered, getting the certifications that you need, and obviously doing the proposal development to submit to the government. So I managed to get all those three units of people that know what they're doing and collect them, almost like a vacuum, right? I collected the right people because, I realized that, I became such a big person in this industry, but I wouldn't have done it without the people that I've collected.
Yeah. It's amazing because this is needed, right? But you created something out of nothing in a way.
Yeah.
Right. You saw a gap. You're like, so I'm a big believer in creating things that are like not created yet.
Yeah.
Or seeing something that's created. Like I did this with the That1 agency, same kind of thing. There's a lot of people that have podcast booking firms, but there was big gaps in it.
Yeah.
And I saw all kinds of things that they could be doing. And I'm like, why would I just critique them? Why don't I just do it?
Right.
Right. And so you did that. And it's amazing. And what happens is you become that one in your space because of that.
Yes.
That's how you do it, because you separate yourself. Right. So tell me about the homeless guy. Like what was the deal?
So he knew the owner.
In DC?
He knew the homeless guy. This was in Tampa.
Okay.
This was in Tampa, right? So afterwards, so this was in Tampa. He worked at the company that I worked at, but he told me that I'm so much better than that. He heard me on the phone.
This guy you're talking about, Scott?
Mm-hmm.
He's the one that was a homeless guy?
Scott was a homeless guy.
Okay, I didn't.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yes. So Scott was a homeless guy that
he worked at the place you worked.
He worked at the place I worked, correct?
Okay.
But he got let go from that place because he was just a drunken train.
Okay,
right.
Gotcha.
So he worked at a low level sales job like Nielsen, right?
Gotcha.
To where he told me, he's like, I see so much potential in you. So I was like, I was young, I wanted to make the money, but I realized something, that I wasn't all about the money. I was more about like, hey, like, when I put that headset on and I worked for XYZ company, I didn't feel good because I wasn't providing a service for people.
Yeah.
So I saw the gap, right? And I went and did something about it.
Yeah. So it's amazing how some people cannot take care of themselves, but they can see the potential in someone else. Yeah. It's amazing. And they don't have the ability to see it in themselves.
No, and I thank him every day.
Yeah.
And people look at me like I'm crazy, like a homeless guy put you in this position. But yes, they did. And I was never like the type of guy to say like, hey, I want to make money, or I want to be a millionaire, or I got to get this, I'm going to get that. No, life kind of just happened like that.
Yeah.
It was never, I started like working with pizza dough and washing dishes but the biggest thing is like I never gave up, right, into doing what I really love. And just a message to everybody, if you love something and you're really passionate about it, put what you're passionate about in front of you. And that's the best way to reach your goals, guys.
Yeah, but you had work ethic built into you.
Yeah.
Right? That's important, because if you don't have a work ethic, it doesn't matter.
I think it just comes from family.
Yeah, then you got dreams, and then you got things that dreams turn into the passion that you can execute on. You can't execute without work ethic. And you've had that built into you thanks to your dad, right?
Yeah.
So, all right. So you're in DC, you get this idea, you start networking. And then how did you start to execute on it yourself? Like, how did it turn into a business?
Well, it wasn't just me, right? It was me letting those individuals know like, hey, so this is what I was doing. This is what I was telling people, right? And they were telling me, okay, well, this is how you actually do the registration. This is how actually you perform on a certification and get it done for a client. This is how you respond to a request for proposal. You know what I mean? And that's such a huge thing, because I only have two competitors. And again, I'm not going to say their names, but and I don't badmouth competition, and you as a business owner should never do it, but always remember that you want to do right by people. You want to do right by your clients. That's the only way they're going to come back. So if you service them right, if you meet deadlines right, if you make sure that, they actually win and they have a good chance at winning, then they're going to always come back to you.
Yeah. So then, all right. So then did you incorporate then, or how did you start collecting money, making an offering?
Correct. So we'll get to that. So I met the right people. A lot of them actually wanted to move down here. So it worked out perfectly, right? And I'm pretty sure that, obviously DC is expensive, St. Pete, a lot of my guys work in St. Pete. I live in St. Pete. So they came down here. I gave them job offerings. We set already a plan when they came down here, right? We got a warehouse where we barely had AC. It was a 7,000 square feet warehouse. And we just put everything into paper. Like, hey, you're going to do this. This person's going to do this. We established the company and we made it happen. But
wait a minute. You can't do that though until you either have capital to invest your own capital, raise capital, or have revenue coming in.
Correct. So, but remember, we started very small.
Yeah.
Started very small.
But still, to get a 7,000 square foot place, right? And having to have payroll at all, even one person, There's got to be some money coming from somewhere.
Correct. So
how did you do that?
So here's how it went down. So I was really good at saving my money. I was really good at saving money. I had about $50,000 at the time. The place that I was trying to get a whole rental agreement, they said that, hey, they denied me because I've never had rental experience before and I can't show the revenue, right? So what I did was I told them, hey, you know what? I'm just going to go ahead and pay the rent up front for the entire year.
Okay.
And that's how I got my foot in the door.
Stress off of you.
Correct. That got me my foot in the door.
Yeah, because like if you have a monthly rental bill, like you're thinking about that every month.
And the tenant was like, okay, you're willing to pay this up front? All right, we'll make it happen for you.
Yeah. And did you get a deal?
I did.
Yeah.
I got a deal.
So a couple things happen. You got a deal, pay less money, and then you get the monthly stress of, oh, I got to pay that bill.
That helped me out big time.
Yeah.
Big time.
Yeah. A lot of people don't think that way.
Yeah. So I had the group of people, right? And one big special shout out is to Javier Hernandez, right? He's one of my childhood friends. He's great. He has his bachelor's in business administration. So he helps me with my entire back end, right? So we're like the yin and the yang, right? So he makes sure that, that the registration team's doing what they need to do, certification team's doing what they need to do, and that the proposals are being submitted on time and in a timely manner. So we started it together. So he helped me out big time. I needed his administrative skills.
Okay. And then when did the first dollar come in?
The first dollar came in.
What was
the first dollar came in the first week.
Okay.
The first week. So what we did was we didn't have money for advertising or anything like that. So we started calling people on the SAM registration list. So picture it like this. If you're registered in SAM, it's the license that you need to do business with the federal government.
Okay.
It doesn't mean you're going to catch a tuna fish.
Right.
It just means you can be in the waters, right? So we had access to that database and we started calling people like, hey, I see that you're registered in SAM. Do you need help with government contracting?
Yep.
Right? So we started getting guys to call. We were on the phones and we started getting our sales in. That's kind of how it rose. No advertising, nothing like that.
So obviously just reach out, get out, let people know who you are, what you do, right? That's important. That's a form of promotion, by the way.
Yeah.
There was a movie called, was it War Dogs? Did you watch that movie?
It's only the best movie ever.
Did you watch it? Yeah. So is it similar to what you guys do?
No, because they were actually selling to the government.
So we make sure that you help.
Correct.
Okay. Yeah.
We make sure that doesn't happen.
Yep. Okay. Gotcha.
Because they get the bullets from Italy, and it was they just changed the wrappers on it.
Yeah. All right. And so you help people do things the right way for longevity and stability and growth.
Correct.
Right. So, but when you watch that movie though, do you get a kick out of it?
I love it.
Yeah.
It's one of my favorite movies.
Yeah. It's like for me, when I was in the mortgage industry, we watched Boiler Room and of course Wall Street, because I started in a cube farm and we were doing refi leads. So we were calling leads all the time, and it was a boiler room. Like it was the same thing. So I watched that movie same way you probably watch War Dogs. All right. So then you got the first one come in. What's that feeling that you had when that first?
It was the best feeling ever.
Yeah.
The best feeling ever.
Yeah.
We did jumping jacks.
Yeah.
Like it was.
Was it big or was it little?
It was little.
Yeah.
It was like a $4,000 sale, but you know what? But it felt good. It's like our first transaction. This is actually working. It's crazy. And then it all started coming in.
Yeah.
It all started coming in little by little. Little by little, we started growing. Revenue started coming in, and we moved into our office that's in Tampa.
You're like, give me more.
Yeah.
Give me more. Feed the kid.
Yeah.
And so, all right. So then when you started making that kind of money, right? Most people that start businesses don't know how to run a business. They don't understand cash flow management.
Mm-hmm.
So how did all that play out when you started bringing money in?
I brought my dad in.
Well, you did say you were good at saving money, so that carried over. But you brought your dad in.
I brought my dad in, right?
And how far into the business did he come in?
He came in probably maybe like a month and a half in, something like that. So just help me administrate, just making sure that funds are being spent in the right way, because, you have to remember this. It's not about how much money you make. It's how much you save. Yeah. It doesn't matter. You can make $7 million, but if you spend 6.5, what are you making?
Yeah.
So that was a big thing. So again, my success is not just me. It's been, my father, Javier, Josh Parnell, William Veer, right? It's been all these different people, right, that have collaborated to this this conglomerate.
What was the conversation with your dad? Like, was it him that saw something and he was like, hey, I need to come in and help you. Do you want me to come in and help you? Or were you like talking to him about something and then he was like, I'll come in? Like, how did that go?
Well, he knows that I've been successful in the industry. He knows, I went to DC. He knows my passion behind things. I've had his back. He has mine. Just like family, it's code. It doesn't matter if it's a failing business, if it's a successful business, he's going to be in it with me regardless.
So, but how did the conversation go? Like what happened to get him in there?
Well, the biggest thing that I told him is like, hey, we're doing this right. I need your help. We're making money and I need help, with you administrating it.
Gotcha.
Right.
And he was in
straight
away.
He was in. Yeah. Because he saw the potential. He saw the warehouse. He saw, us wearing wife beaters in there with no AC, 7,000 square. I don't have.
Do you have pictures of those?
I absolutely have pictures of those.
Jeff Bezos has a picture of him in his garage.
I have a picture. It's on my Instagram. Yeah. I got to show it to you.
Yeah.
So, we didn't have the money to make AC run through like a mall, right? So we had to work with what we had. So at the beginning, we had to fake it a little bit till we made it. We didn't have the entire staff, but we grew. We made mistakes, as any other business. But now I would proudly like to say that we're the biggest military contracting consulting firm in America. Easily, feature for feature, we're the biggest. Yeah.
All right. And so The Wolf of Wall Street, the movie, Jordan Belfort's dad was the CFO, I think. You remember that? And then he was getting mad because they were spending on strippers and going out partying and all that and losing his shit. You and your dad have any conflicts like that at all?
Well, I think it wasn't. No, I'm not big on that aspect of it. But I will say this: that he's always kind of been like, "Hey, what are you spending money on? Why are we spending this on Google? What's that? Why is it so expensive? Right? Why is it so expensive? Why are you paying these people so much money?" So it's just a matter of him understanding the business from every single angle.
Okay,
right?
Let's talk about reinvesting in your business.
Okay.
Right? Because you get money coming in, you got to figure out how much you're going to pay yourself. But also, when you start making money, it's not your money yet because you're trying to grow a business. So businesses take reinvestment. Correct. How did you handle reinvestment in your business?
Well, our first year, right, we nailed it. We had a ton of money coming in. Our first year, what we did is, I would say a good 40% of the revenue that we had, we used to, get a new office, get cubicles, have a bigger budget for Google, right? Have administrative assistants, have an HR lady, right? Have a marketing team. So 40% of what we made our first year went to a new infrastructure as far as a building and back-end infrastructure as well.
Gotcha.
40% of what we did went to that.
What's the toughest time in the business that you've had so far that you lost sleep over?
Christmas time.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Why?
Because everybody's buying
year?
presents. Yes.
Every year. Okay. So that's a period. That's like a season that's tough. But like, what's one moment that was like a moment where you were like losing sleep over?
Well, I've had a lot of.
By the way, like people see the revenue that you guys do. We don't have to share that right now, but you do well, right? And they see that part. They don't get to see all the behind the scenes part. They don't get to see the sacrifices you made, the sleepless nights. If you've had those, I know I have.
I have them a lot.
You know what I mean? Like, that you have fixed expenses that need to be paid, and especially when you're first starting out, you have roller coaster months. Like, so what was a moment? Like, was there one that sticks out?
I think. Well, there's been a lot of moments that, I've lost sleep. I think the biggest thing is, having a client that doesn't send us proper documentation, but says that, hey, I want to bid on this bid and it's due on Friday. He wants it done, but he doesn't qualify. And we have to tell him that, hey, it can't be done.
Right.
That's the problem is that we're not the company. We need companies that are structured, that have compliance, that send us documentation, and that have good communication. So I think that's one of those things is like whenever we've brought in clients that are just not worth it because they're not really meant for the program, I think I've lost sleep over that.
Yeah.
Is dealing with unreasonable customers.
Yeah. So two things. Number one, you have to qualify efficiently and effectively, right?
Yeah.
The other thing is setting proper expectations for your clients up front, right? This is something we've learned the hard way. Like I know the expectations in our business, but the client doesn't. You can't assume they know everything because we take it for granted because we're in it every day.
Right.
Right. So one thing we did, I don't know if you guys do this yet, and maybe it's a suggestion, but we created a client expectation and it lays out what they should expect of us and what we're willing to do. And then also what we expect of them because it's a team effort.
Yeah.
Right. Because you guys can't do what you do without it being a team effort with your client and yourselves. You guys got to be aligned.
Correct.
And the expectations got to be right. So if they don't have their expectations right, then it causes all kinds of headaches for you.
Correct. And that was one of the growing pains, right? Yeah. Now we have a whole qualification script where they know exactly what type of clients we should get in. They have to have a certain revenue, right? They have to have had accounts before. They have to have shown sales. Mm-hmm. Like if you can't show sales for a product or service, you can't sell to the government. The government, the first thing they look for is reliability. Yeah. If they can count on you in your books and physically to make it on time to the job, then you're good. If not, then it's not a good candidate to have.
Yeah. What's the best story that you're able to share from this business with a client or whatever.
Yeah.
Or an employee or whatever. What's the best one that like you can share with us that's like
I would say
crazy?
Matt May, president of Core Group Resources, he signed up. His first 2 weeks, we won him a $6 million contract, and he'll be a client forever. Yeah. He does staffing.
So what's the average government contract for your clients?
Depends. It can go anywhere from 6 million. It can go to 100 million. Just depends.
And that's revenue, but then there's also those that have big margins too, where they can make money, not just the revenue part, right?
Correct.
What matters really is what margin you have.
Correct.
Right. So what's like
the industry?
Yeah.
I would say IT.
Yeah.
IT. I mean, any IT contractors, guys that do information technology, IT infrastructure, cloud. I mean, you guys are looking at margins that could be anywhere from 50 to 75%. Because think about it. It's their labor.
Yeah.
It's their labor doing the work, and they're selling it to the government. The government awards contracts for 25 million, 30 million, right? For cybersecurity services. That's a whole nother ballgame.
Yeah.
So think about it. They're paying for your labor.
Mm-hmm.
That's why IT is so huge.
Yeah. And then what's an industry that wouldn't expect to be in the government contracting space that they need to hear this right now? And they, hey, the government needs you.
The thing is, look, the government buys paper clips, the ships, the construction, they buy it all. You guys have heard me say this before, and I'm going to say it again. They need all types of businesses. But I will say this. Currently, trucking companies, right? If you have semi-trucks, if you have cargo vans, the government isn't issuing out as many contracts for that. Okay. We don't take on any trucking logistic companies.
Okay.
Because there's no contracts for them because Crawley took their contract.
What's an ideal one you're looking for that you haven't necessarily worked with yet that would be great for government contracting? Is there one?
That I haven't. The thing is, we have all types of clients.
but there's people out there that don't think that they could fit that mold of selling to the government. Is there one that sticks out or no?
Well, it just depends. Now, let's just say you sell a specific product, right? Mm-hmm. Like something to close a door, or you sell a specific widget, right? Or some type of device that you want to sell to the government, right? You can do a proposal and send it to them and say, hey, this is a solution that I have for your agency that you haven't asked for. You guys need to see this. So that's a thing as well.
Okay.
You know what I mean?
Yeah. Pitching them on things that they don't know that they need yet.
The thing is, we see the contracts that get awarded every day.
Yeah.
So we know exactly what the government's looking for. And from what gets awarded is how we contact our clientele.
So do you have the ability to get them higher on the list for the government to look at? Prioritize them somehow?
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes. So if you are a woman-owned business, a veteran-owned business, a minority-owned business, or your business is in a hub zone, you get priority on any federal contracts.
Okay. That is very important, but also the preparation of what you guys do for people. Because here's the thing, you not necessarily prioritize, but by the time they look at your bid, whatever it's called, your quest, I don't know the wording.
No, you said it. You said it right.
The nomenclature.
It's definitely a quest.
Yeah. So you put that out there, the government looks at it, and if you don't have it put together well, it gets kicked out and maybe not re-entered, or you go back to the back of the line.
They just click next record.
Yeah.
They move on to the next qualified company.
So that's why it's important to work with you guys, right?
Yes.
All right. And then the other thing is DOGE is being put in place. The new Trump administration, they're going to be cutting government down, apparently saving $2 trillion and all that. When that came out and you started hearing about that, what went through your mind?
I think it was a good thing. I'll tell you why. Because it's not necessarily that they're making the budget less. They're just putting the budgets in the right places. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Because right now they're spending trillions of dollars on executive assistants that aren't really doing much, right? For the FBI or the DOD or the Pentagon. So now they're going to put that budget towards government contracts that, hey, we need contractors to do this. We need contractors to do that. And especially if they're going to actually get Greenland on the map, that would be huge. That's even more opportunities, more government contracts. So I think I see it as a positive.
Okay. And so no negative went through your mind at all in that?
No negative went through my mind.
I love it. Well, that's the way you should operate no matter what anyway.
Yeah.
All right. And then the other thing I was thinking about is how the government spends more for an item or a service than the private sector does. What percentage is that generally, do you see?
Depends on the industry.
But give me
Usually, okay. So on government contracts, since it's federal, right? And it's you directly with the federal government, you're not the subcontractor, you can make anywhere from 35% to 45% profit margins.
But I mean, more than you would in the private sector? Like, what's the difference between the private sector and then selling to the federal
difference with the private sector and the federal government is that the federal government on certain contracts, they pay times 3.
Okay. Yeah, because you hear about the golden toilet seat. They spend $1 million on a toilet seat. You know, all that stuff.
They spend money on crazy stuff.
Yeah. So, all right. So Doge's going to come back in do this thing where they're going to make things more efficient. You think more money is going to go towards the things that the companies that you're working with, which is a good thing. But what about like the fact that they do spend more than the private sector? Do you think that they're going to cut down on the percentage, that gap?
I don't think they're going to cut down. I think they're just going to spend on what they need to spend on, right? If they cut down on things that we don't need, that's just better for businesses.
Yeah.
That's just better for small businesses either way. Either way, I see it as a win. If they do cut down on budgets, then they're cutting down on budgets on things that we don't even have to pay taxes for, right?
Yeah.
So that's going to make the small business pool even better, right? And that's my clientele. And as long as they're putting funding for contracts that the government, that the needs of the government, as long as they're putting funding in the right areas for businesses to bid on, that's all I care about.
What about tariffs? When they talk about tariffs, a lot of times it's products and services. It's coming in from the other countries. Do you work with any of that? Does it affect you at all?
I'll tell you one thing. So currently, the government doesn't buy anything from China, nothing from China. There's certain countries that they do business with. As long as that company is TAA compliant. What TAA means, it's Trade Act Agreement. If you are TAA compliant, you can sell from other international countries and you don't have to worry about that.
So do tariffs affect what the government buys for the government? Because what you do is for companies that sell to the government, not sell to U.S. citizens.
Correct.
Or U.S. companies.
It doesn't affect
to the government. So it doesn't affect
at all.
Okay.
No.
Okay. Gotcha. All right. And then from this point forward, going forward, what's the vision from here?
Vision is huge.
Yeah, let's hear it.
The vision that I have with federal government advisors, right? So currently we've dominated the market in America. Every single state we have clients. We've won contracts in every single category, from consulting to products to manufacturing to IT. We've won it. We've mastered it. Our bid writers are also Shipley certified, right? So the next step would be, and this is something that no one's doing, right, is helping businesses and foreign governments get government contracts with them. That's the goal that I have.
Businesses and foreign governments to get contracts from who?
So for example, like businesses that are in Canada, for example, we want to help those businesses get Canadian government contracts.
Gotcha.
And this actually came from Evan Markowitz, which he was actually a Canadian bid writer that came to work for me. And he told me that the Canadian market is crazy and that, a lot of businesses don't know how to get Canadian government contracts. So I thought to myself, a light bulb came up and said, okay, well, it's not just in America. This is in other countries as well. Obviously, I'm not going to help businesses get contracts in like China or Russia, but, the UK could be a big one. Canada could be a big one. And I think that I want to get into that market. That's my vision.
What about state level?
We do that.
Oh, you do that too? Okay.
State, local,
all 50
county.
States?
All 50 states.
Okay. So yeah, dude, this is like a blue ocean.
Yes.
There's so much there. What is the biggest challenge for your company right now?
The biggest challenge for my company right now is getting the right clientele in. And I'll tell you why. Because right before you become a client, everybody's like, oh, I'm the best. I have a secretary, I have staff. I'm going to meet
I have a secretary.
I'm going to meet every meeting. The bid is due on Thursday, 3:00, but they're in the Bahamas. Yeah. How can we win like that? Yeah. So I think that's the biggest struggle. And we have no way of finding that out. All we can do is qualify, look at their past performance, but you really find out who someone is when you live with them. It's the same thing. And our service isn't like, hey, I sell you this water bottle, here you go. It's a 12-month ongoing service. You see what I'm saying? So I'm walking down the aisle with you for 12 months.
Yeah.
I'm going to find out who you are real quick.
All right. So all this stuff's going through my head, and you may have already done this, thought about this, but I don't assume anything. So I'm just going to
you're good.
tell you what I think. So what I think about is, okay, we can't control them necessarily. We can't put the responsibility on them. It's all on us. And so for me, like in our company, I'd be preaching like, yeah, that guy might be lazy. That guy might be this. If we're taking them on and we decide to take them on and not turn them away, we have to take 100% responsibility. It's got to be all on us, right? Because at the end of the day, like, you don't make money if you don't get the contract for them or carry through, right? If you don't perform what you're doing. So how can you make sure that they're doing what they need to do, like these companies, and you let them know clearly ahead of time, make them sign something that they understand the importance of timeliness. Time is of the essence. et cetera, et cetera.
So what we do is they already sign a contract. They have a what to expect next. They have 3 different levels of accountability.
Yeah. Okay.
Right. So they have the sales representative. They have Sarah Rivera. They have Daniela Kalina. They have Cheryl Williams. So they have all these different people that get with them and say, hey, it's not going to be a phone call. It's going to be a Google meeting. So you can look at the screen, a reminder for the meeting at this specific time. Right. But that's all we can do. Because remember, it would be different if FGA was the one that was getting the government contract.
Right.
And that's different.
Right,
but
right.
they're getting the contract. We're just a consultancy.
Yep.
Right. So all we can do is hold their hand as much as possible and try the best that we can.
Yeah.
What I do with customers that I can't work with, I just refund them.
Yeah.
I just refund them because if it's not mutually beneficial, if we're spending time with a company that we cannot help, that's taking away from companies that we can't help. This is a time management business, who we spend our time with. It's also a time management business on spending the right time on the right bids. That's how you end up winning.
All right. I want to cover one more thing as we wrap up. We're up against the clock, but before we do that, where can people go deeper with you that have a business that want to get more information?
Well, they can go visit us at www.federalgovadvisors.com, right? Or they can come to our office, 8180 Woodland Center Boulevard, Tampa, Florida.
All right, cool. All right. So I want to talk about personal brand and podcasting and all that. So what's going through your mind for you personally? Because you have your business, that's a brand, your personal brand, and getting out there and getting known and all that. What's been going through your mind on that? And what's the vision for that for you in the future?
I think now, because, none of my competitors are on podcasts, right? None of my competitors show face. None of them are on socials. I think that the more wins that I show, the better. The more podcasts that I go on and I talk about this and I talk about my story, I talk about the wins that we've had, and I just show a proof of concept, I think the better, right? So podcast, speaking, going to military conventions, right? A more people to people thing. I think that's a good direction to head.
Yeah, I love it. All right. Well, I appreciate you being here, man. Appreciate your time coming in.
That.
And hope you guys enjoyed this episode of That1 Podcast. It's your boy C-Roc. We're rocking it out here. Look, if you got a business and the government could use your service or products, you got to check this guy out, man, and go to the website that he talked about. You can always hit me up if you need anything. It's your boy C-Roc. We're here at Evotion Studio with my man Jet in Clearwater. Make sure you keep subscribing. Tell your friends, family, coworkers about the show and our guy Jeff. Until next time, be that one.